The total financial impact of the recent Cloudflare outage across affected businesses is estimated to be between 180 millions and 360 million. The disruption during the three peak trading hours potentially cost Forex and CFD brokers an estimated of 1.58 billion in lost trading volume. Welcome to Secured by Design, the podcast where we explore how identity and wider cybersecurity shape the foundation of our digital world. I'm Santosh, and in each episode, I'll share insights and practical perspectives on how we can build security into every layer of technology and business. From identity security and zero trust to the latest in cloud and compliance, let's dive into what it takes to design security that lasts. Now that all the dust has settled, let's talk about Tuesday, November 18th, 2025. It's a day when huge chunks of internet just vanished. Now, this wasn't some big dramatic cyber attack you see in the movies. The cause was way more ordinary. A single, tiny error buried deep inside a company that is no short of a foundational provider of internet infrastructure services. So today, we're going to dig into the great Cloudflare outage, the one that showed the world just how fragile our digital lives really are. The chaos kicked off around 11:20 UTC. All of a sudden, when people all over the world tried to check their feed on X, ask a question on ChatGPT, or stream a playlist on Spotify, they started getting hit with error messages. At first, it was just weird. A service would pop back online for a second and then crash again. If you were a developer, it was an absolute nightmare. You're scrambling to fix a problem that isn't even in your own code. But for everyone else, it was just the day the internet broke. And the scale of this was just staggering. The outage is estimated to have hit services with a combined total of 2.4 billion monthly active users. A huge portion of the entire planet's internet population felt the impact of this one single failure. And look, we're not talking about some obscure website here. This hit the services that are woven into our daily lives. Your AI assistants, your social media, your music, your work tools, etc. And this had real consequences. People couldn't get into their password managers, couldn't access their company's HR systems. I mean, you couldn't even book time off. All told, the disruption lasted for nearly 6 hours. It started the morning over Europe and then hit the US East Coast with full force right as people were starting their workday. It was a frantic race to find a fix. At first, everyone, including Cloudflare, thought it was a massive cyber attack, only to realize the call was actually coming from inside the house. So who's Cloudflare, and how is it possible that one company going down can cause this kind of massive cascading failure? Let's peel back the curtain and look at the critical role they play every time you browse the web. Okay, the simplest way to think about Cloudflare is that they are like the internet's gatekeeper as well as the operator of its super fast express lane, all roll into one. They sit in between you and the website you're trying to visit. As gatekeeper, they filter out all the bad requests and nasty attacks, but they also store copies of websites all over the world to make them load way faster for you. So they're handling all the critical stuff in the background. They're stopping DDoS attacks that try to overwhelm websites. They're figuring out if you're a real person or a malicious bot, and they do this all over 20% of the entire internet. So when they have a bad day, we all have a bad day. And here's the kicker. The problem on November 18th wasn't caused by some hacker in a dark room. It was a self-inflicted wound, a tiny little change that triggered a massive and completely unexpected domino effect. This is where the story gets really wild. So how did this happen? It was a perfect storm, a crazy chain reaction that all started with one tiny change. A totally harmless looking update to database permission. At 11:05 UTC, a change was made to access control in Cloudflare's ClickHouse database cluster. This change inadvertently altered the behavior of a query that generates the bot management system's feature file. The altered query began accidentally returning duplicate rows from the database. This caused the bot management feature file, which normally contains around 60 features, to swell to over 200 features, more than doubling its expected size. Cloudflare's architecture maintains a copy of the same bot management feature file across all its servers worldwide. Also, for performance optimization, Cloudflare's core proxy system pre-allocates memory for the feature file. The system was built to handle a configuration file with about 60 data points, but had a hard-coded limit of 200 features just in case. So when that oversized file exceeding this limit got sent out to Cloudflare servers all around the world, it hit a memory limit and crashed them. All of them instantly. This performance-driven design choice became the critical vulnerability. Think of it like a parking garage built for exactly 200 cars. There's no overflow lot, no street parking. When that 201st car shows up, there was just nowhere for it to go, and the whole system just seized up. The newer Rust-based proxy engine, they call it FL2, attempted to load the oversized file. The code used the Rust unwrap function, which is designed to panic and crash the thread if it encounters an error. This unhandled panic occurred simultaneously across Cloudflare's global fleet as each server received the faulty file, leading to widespread HTTP 500 series errors. This is kind of ironic because Rust is famous for being super safe and preventing these exact kind of crashes. In retrospect, it just makes you think that, leave alone the architectural gap, this could have been prevented if they had implemented an additional step to check the file size before loading the file. I mean, they were aware of a hard limit, so could have implemented this. Just a thought. The technical failure is one thing, but the real world consequences, they were absolutely enormous. Let's take a look at the actual price tag of this digital catastrophe. This is a pretty conservative estimate amount that major services lost during the outage. For almost 6 hours, e-commerce sites couldn't sell anything, streaming services couldn't show ads, and software companies couldn't serve their customers. That is a massive financial blow from a single bug. The failure of Cloudflare's core proxy system meant that any service relying on it for CDN, DDoS protection, or security became inaccessible or severely degraded. This included the likes of Twitter, ChatGPT, Spotify, Canva, Discord, Dropbox, Shopify, Coinbase, Perplexity, and Figma, and more. This had impact also to critical infrastructure like public transit systems like NJ Transit, various banking and payment portals, and McDonald's ordering kiosk. Setting all other disruptions aside, imagine not being able to order your Happy Meal. Just kidding. As the news broke, Cloudflare's stock price tanked by 3.9% in pre-market trading, wiping out $1.8 billion in market value. It's a pretty stark reminder of just how fast trust and value are connected in the tech world. The total financial impact across affected businesses is estimated to be between $180 million and $360 million. The disruption during the 3 peak trading hours potentially cost Forex and CFD brokers an estimated $1.58 billion in lost trading volume, equating to roughly 1% of their monthly revenue. But the fallout wasn't just about the money. Remember, this is a security-focused podcast. So, if we take a step back and put our security hat and think, while all these companies scrambled to get back online, some by completely bypassing Cloudflare, Did they accidentally give themselves a live fire security test? So, in a desperate bid to restore service, some companies made the logical decision to reroute their traffic, bypassing Cloudflare entirely. When the big Cloudflare shield came down, what do you think was left exposed? For a few hours, tons of companies would have been facing the raw, unfiltered internet. This would have forced them to ask if their own security was actually strong enough, or if they had just been leaning on Cloudflare to do all the hard work. Attackers could have exploited this window to target services that had become lazy in their own security practices, relying on Cloudflare to stop threats like SQL injection, cross site scripting, and credential stuffing at the edge. Their servers would have suddenly started getting hit by all the malicious bots and scanners that are normally blocked. It would have doubled up as a surprise, an impromptu penetration test of what their security really looked like. This whole massive failure wasn't just a technical problem, it was a lesson, a very expensive lesson. So, what did it really teach us about the internet we use every single day? It broke this perception that the internet is this sprawling, decentralized thing that can't be broken. But the reality is that huge parts of it are balanced on a handful of critical pillars. Companies like Cloudflare, AWS, and Microsoft Azure, etc. When one of them stumbles, the whole internet can wobble. The failure highlighted that despite a physically distributed network of data centers, Cloudflare's centralized configuration control plane acted as a single point of failure, maximizing the blast radius of a single error. So, the takeaway here are crystal clear. Centralizing everything creates these massive single points of failure. An internal mistake can just be as bad, if not worse, than a cyber attack. Remember, this vulnerability is not rooted in the threat of a sophisticated cyber attack, but in our deep systematic dependence on a small number of key infrastructure providers. To its credit, Cloudflare provided a swift and remarkably transparent postmortem, offering a rare look inside the anatomy of a global internet failure. I will drop a link to Cloudflare's official response to this outage in the show notes so that you can have a further read if you are interested. Our systems need to be built to fail gracefully. To maybe slow down, but not just fall off a cliff. And real redundancy, real safety means not just trusting one vendor, but using multiple ones. Ultimately, the Cloudflare outage of 2025 was a powerful and incredibly expensive wake-up call. It was a harsh reminder of the hidden fragility in the system we count on for everything. And it leaves us with a pretty heavy question. We've now seen what happens when one of these critical pillars cracks. What happens when the next one fails? Thanks for listening to Secure by Design. If today's episode gave you something to think about, subscribe and follow on your favorite streaming platform for more discussions on identity and cybersecurity. Please feel free to share it with your team. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn for updates and new episode releases. Until next time, stay secure, stay resilient, and stay secure by design.